Hi. Okay,
Hi.
so I'm sitting here with Candace Chisholm, and full disclosure, this is a slightly different interview than I usually do for the magazine because this is family, so this is personal. Um, Candace is my aunt, and this is my mom's sister. So she's part of that legacy that maybe you've seen in some of my other videos where my grandmother has done Touch for Health work, my mom, myself, my kids, my little sister, and my aunt. And we've never worked really together in the holistic health field, but we've kind of been running parallel tracks in a lot of ways
Yeah.
for the entire time that I've really been in it. So I'm really happy about us having this opportunity today to talk about a new project.
Me
So,
too.
Candy, you and your husband Mike are co authors of a new book called She Changed Me One Ordeal, Two Perspectives. So, can you tell us a little bit about Solara and what inspired this story?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I admire you so much. You're incredible. So I love it. This is really special. So yeah, I have a granddaughter. Her name is Alara, and it's my oldest son's daughter. She's currently 3.5. Um, and she's this bright light. Everybody tells you that when you become a grandparent, like I always thought being a mom was just the bomb. Everybody tells you when you become a grandparent, it's just nothing like it. And I thought, oh well, yeah, but they're super right. I joke with my kids. I wish I could have become a grandparent. Not wish, but it would have been nice to become a grandparent without the pain of the parent part. But she's incredible. She's an incredible little girl. She kind of came into the world despite a few obstacles. When she was born, I was privileged enough to be in the delivery room, and she's little 6 pound, 6 ounce little peanut, and I exclaimed, "She's the leader of the free world." So the doctor thought I was crazy. Yeah, so does a lot of other people. So that's okay. Runs in the family. But
There's facts. I mean, there's.
we just accepted it. But she's just so cool. And we were just kind of plugging along as grandparents, learning the ropes. We were really fortunate to have her come and be a part of our life right away. So, she would sleep overnight right from baby once a week, and we really bonded with her. My husband, Mike, the co-author of this book, he doesn't have any natural children of his own. So this was a whole new experience for him. He did not know quite how that would go, and it turns out he loves it. So fast forward to 2019, end of 2019, we were going through a lot of stuff with the family. Our family, my father was really sick, your grandpa, and at the end of 2019, he passed away. And I remember thinking, okay, like, because it had been sort of a struggle for the last year or so. And I remember thinking, okay, like, time to just sort of decompress. And I helped my mom move into my brother's house, and in November and December, we were just taking some time. And so we had Laura a lot, and we were taking her out. We wanted to take her out for a walk around the block, in the snow. And we got home and she just wasn't acting right. And I muscle test her all the time. I do Touch for Health myself and muscle testing. And so I muscle test her all the time. And there just was something off, that was like intuitive. And, something kept coming up and I couldn't really put my finger on it. Anyways, put her in the bathtub, and I noticed there was this small lump in her lower back. And instantly, we get those feelings. And I always say to people, like, act on those when you get them, right? We've got this incredible innate gift in all of us of intuition. And we tend not to use it as much because we might feel bad because maybe it makes somebody else feel bad or something along that line. So found a lump. And long story short, so that was on December the 21st. On the 23rd, we went down to emergency to get it checked out. On the 23rd, we were in for a CAT scan. On the 24th, we were in for an MRI, which is crazy in itself because our medical system doesn't really get you in, especially on Christmas Eve. I say in the book, it's like getting the G7 summit together to get all of these people, especially when you're doing an MRI on a baby. She was 18 months old. And they discovered a mass, a lump, a tumor, and we were in Children's Hospital by Boxing Day.
So
Um,
fast. I mean, that's just
it was
incredible.
it was so fast. It was like, I don't even think I breathed for about 4 days. Like, I remember exhaling and then went, oh, that might have been a mistake because I don't know if I can get one back in. So yeah, maybe don't exhale next time. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so we went down to Children's Hospital. So, you know, they did all of the scans and they said, yes, she had a, I always mispronounce the medical term. It's sacrococcygeal, I think, but short term, it's called a yolk sac tumor. So she went into surgery on New Year's Eve. We had her in for surgery. They actually brought a picture out of it, which I still have on my phone to this day. It actually looked a little like a heart, which was, I found rather interesting. But the tumor is about the size of my fist, and it was sitting on her tailbone. And they were able to get 98% of the tumor, but 2% was left in. And so they sat us down on January the 5th, I believe, 5th or 6th, and said, we believe it's malignant and we're going to start treatment. So, you know, when we went down to Vancouver, my husband and I went down to Vancouver, we thought we were going for a couple of weeks. You know, we were sort of like, oh, it's, you know, and I had been in touch with you and Holly, you know, and we kept going back and forth, which I was so grateful for. So grateful for this community. I mean, regardless of the fact that you're my family, but for the community, because the strength that was behind it, and that, you know, that feeling of like, it will be okay, we'll get through this no matter what. And so we just ended up staying. And so my husband and I stayed down in Vancouver to support our kids for 5 months, well, 4.5 months, with very little things, you know, like a couple suitcases of clothes. And so that's really what inspired us to write. It wasn't so much the journey of the cancer, to be honest, because many people go through that journey. It was the journey of something so life-changing for us, and how we were able to navigate it and see the actual, like when we could take the time, we could see the blessings and the lessons that came from that were like so phenomenal that I couldn't help but actually put them into print, for myself mostly, for a love letter to Laura. And then I felt like if somebody was going through any ordeal, like it didn't have to be cancer, you know, we've gone through and are going through COVID, you know, there's divorce, there's death, there's loss, there's lots of things that people go through. And, you know, you never want to go out and say, well, you know, I don't say, well, everything happens for a reason, and try to have that sort of ultimate positivity. That's not what it's about. It's about this, like this happens, like change happens, shifts happen, things happen. And it's what we can take from that, for me, that can be life altering. And that's what it was for us.
Amazing. Right. Okay, so then, I mean, I know some of the things that you've talked about with that, the gratitude and the lessons and the ability to be there in that way for your kids.
Yes.
Also focusing in just for a second, because yeah, this is for the magazine, so it's mostly practitioners that are reading this. So I'm wondering if you can describe, we've mentioned Touch for Health, but a little bit about your background in the holistic health world. And then more importantly, how were you able to use that and that alternative kind of approach in like an integrated way with the allopathic system in order to support her exactly the way that she needed?
Yeah, it was incredible. So my background, with Touch for Health, you know, you mentioned at the outset that your grandma, so my mom, she was fortunate enough to work with a chiropractor years and years and years ago, who started down the path of Touch for Health and who studied Touch for Health and used it in his practice as a chiro. And so I grew up with this. You know, I think I was about like 5 or 6 years old, you know, when she started kind of going down that path and studying it and learning it. And he was really generous with the fact that he wanted her to learn it as well. So she was muscle testing from when we were little. And so, you know, it was when I got married and had kids of my own and sort of settled into my life, I remember thinking, I want to explore this more, even just for my family. You know, I should probably stop having my mom take care of me and start to sort of be the mom that takes care too. So, you know, I went and I went through all the levels and everything like that. And this was back in 1998, 7 maybe.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. so it ended up actually sort of just morphing into a practice for me, because I love it so much and I believe in it so heavily. And I've seen so much evidence of Touch for Health and, you know, the complementary medicine field. I'd seen so much evidence of the way that it had, you know, helped the quality of life of so many people I loved. You know, my dad was a heart patient from years ago. And I remember he had, you know, they were like, well, he's not gonna live that long. And I mean, my mom kept him going for 25 years. He ate things he didn't really know what he was eating at the time, but that's okay. Right? You know, lots of seeds, he's a little bird.
This is the one that always gets me because my grandfather, he had his first heart attack when I was pregnant with the kids, who are now 19. And I remember being told, my grandmother telling me when I was calling, because I was in another province, going like, is he okay? He said, I have to get through this. I have to live. I have twins to see. And, you know, to your heart. But, you know, he had something like 7 heart attacks and 2 strokes or something of that sort, right? By the time all was said and done?
Yeah,
9.
9 heart attacks, 2 strokes, a quad bypass. He had survived being septic. Yeah, he was a machine. It was fascinating. And, you know, it was interesting because we didn't joke about it, but we were talking about it, you know, sort of at the end of his life. And I was really grateful to be around during that time. And, he, you know, we were tiptoed around him for his heart for years. Like, I remember thinking, like, he's a little ticking time bomb and he could have a heart attack at any moment, which he had, and but survived them all. And you know, like at the end of his life, he was, I believe he had whittled it down to, I think it was around 21% of his heart was actually functioning. And yet this man didn't carry an oxygen tank. He didn't, you know, he was still, up until that last little bit, he was still extremely efficient, and had a great quality of life. And I do attest that to the work that we get to do. And, you know, and then at the end, I remember, like, because we were like, you know, he was dying and he had a stroke and he wasn't going to recover. And they told us that. So he was able to die from home, but his heart was the last thing to go, which was shocking to me. I'm like, wait a minute. How is that possible?
And I know, like, we're not here to talk about him, but just we've all been. I just remember being in the hospital with him after he would have these episodes. You know, we're all just there working on him, and every time the doctor's being like, "I don't understand. He's not. By all accounts, he shouldn't make it. And somehow he's doing fine." And us all being like, "Yeah, that's what we're doing."
So, you know, it's funny because we kind of went down this path, but that was what sort of, that's the love that, you know, has been woven into this work for my whole life. And so, you know, I started my practice and it grew. I laughed at, because I actually just got my first website after 23. I'm going into my 23rd year and I've actually just got my first website. I was so excited. I was like, I have a website for my business. A little behind the times. So that's how, you know, Touch for Health and this kind of worked around. So when we went to Vancouver, you know, like the path that I took with it was always very on the nutrition level. I've taken my nutrition courses and whatnot, and I love food as medicine. I think that there's just so much to learn when it comes to food and how we can eat, when we can eat, when it comes to healing certain, you know, parts of us, and how we can nourish the things that we need to work on. And so that's just always been my sort of my level, or where I've gone with it. So when we went to Vancouver, and Alara, she had grown up with it too. So she was used to certain things. And I really give credit to her mom, Jessica, because Jessica from early on, she was really open to us, taking Alara through this path, because Nico is he loves natural health. And so she used to use a syringe, and we would give Alara, like we would make, certain teas, like buckwheat tea, the green teas and things like that. And she would give Alara like this little buckwheat water in a syringe from when she was little. And so she knew that made her feel better. And so that saved us, because, she didn't have many teeth at 18 months. And it's not like I could get her to eat Brazil nuts or anything like that. And so when we were in the hospital, that was my job for 4.5 months, is I would muscle test her, and then I would, work on her, and I would run, everything that I could do to help balance her. And then I would start the process of making, like I said, teas, or, I would make her own, she had some lung stuff going on. So I would boil down this sort of syrupy stuff that had everything from parsnips and lemons. And I mean, it had all the things in it. So we could syringe it into her. As a matter of fact, it was funny. We actually at one point said, we should do a business, because a lot was about building the blood, because as you know, chemo destroys everything, right? And it brings your levels down to practically nothing. And so that's what I worked on all the time, was building her hemoglobin and working with her white cells. And I laughed, because I said we could do, I think we talked about this, is these little shots and sell them and call them Finding Hemo. Maybe one day I will.
Like, that is $1 million business opportunity right there. Like,
especially with babies, it was like cherries and blueberries and buckwheat and stuff. But the greatest thing about that was that it was working with Western medicine, and doing it side by side. There is nothing more satisfying than watching it on their numbers in real time. And that's what I got to see. Like, I can't even tell you the blessing and the confidence you get from that. Because I went to her team, her oncologist, who was an incredible woman. I don't get intimidated often, but I'll tell you, I said this in the book. It's like she was this Top Gun. Like, I swore her Kenny Loggins playing Danger Zone when she walked by, because I'm like, who is this lady? She's like 6'3", South African, shocking white hair. She was amazing. She was the head of oncology at BC Children's Hospital. And I sat down and I said, look, this is what I do for a living. This is what I do. And she said, okay, let's do it together. You don't keep anything from me, and I won't keep anything from you. And I was like, great, let's go. And so I did. I told her every time what we were working on, and all she kept saying to me was, it's working, keep going. It's working, keep going. It's working, keep going. Like, we did bone broths, and I mean, everything. Marine phytoplanktons, all that. So her numbers were extraordinary. And especially in comparison to some of the other kids that had similar cancers. Like, there's some children there who had to have 30 blood transfusions in the same time that Alara had none. So that was, to me, one of those, moments of, I see it in real time. And there was nothing that felt better than that.
and I really wanted to be able to hear this, like to be able to share this bit, because I think sometimes, both in the allopathic and in the complementary medicine systems, we kind of get stuck in this idea of like, well, we're enemies, right? Like, if you're into alternative health, you wouldn't touch conventional allopathic medicine with a 10-foot pole. And if you're over here in team doctor, you're going to look at the quacks on the other side. And to have such a gorgeous example of you and this woman who has all of this training being able to work together just for the best interests of this little girl is really, really amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point. It was for the best interest of this baby, and we were very, very, and like, this is again one of those blessings. Like, I don't know if that would happen all of the time on their side. I'm always open to it. I'm like, hey, let's like, I'm a big, huge fan of collaboration. I think that it takes all hands on deck. I don't think it's just one modality. It's not just one therapy. It's not just one medicine. We're complicated machines. And in my opinion, it's everything. Why not throw what you can at it to help, right? And you know, and especially like, you know, conventional medicine, like I've always said, conventional medicine, we couldn't survive without it. It's emergency medicine. You know, I can't fix, if you break your bone, you need to have that bone set. If you know, something happens like that. So, but the prevention side, I wish that we could, I wish it was, you know, I think it'll come. I think we've seen just this, our healthcare has shown the fissures in it more than it ever has in these last 2 years. And the strain and stress on the healthcare system, I think we're actually starting to see where people are like, oh wait, like we can't just park our boat here in this dock. We need to look at the whole marina now. And I see that happening. And, you know, so she was open to it, and I'm grateful for that. And, you know, we joked about it at the end. I said, when I come back here in a year with this baby to check on her, I want to see buckwheat hanging in all of the IV bags on these poles. And she's like, maybe that'll happen. So, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, who knows? But, you know, it's fascinating to me, because we also got another experience, but because his kids were staying in Ronald McDonald House. And a lot of the time I would make the bone broth at Ronald McDonald, or I'd make the teas at Ronald McDonald, or I'd make the oat bran, or whatever it is that I was getting this baby to eat. And we were able to educate, help educate people there too, because, you know, you find out real fast that there's like a massive lack of education when it comes to nutrition, in any level. Because quite honestly, when we sat and talked to her team, you know, there's this baby who has cancer. And my first question was, what shouldn't she eat? And they said, nothing. She can eat everything. And I was like, no, she can't. She can't have sugar. You're crazy.
But the number of people I've talked to where it's like the parent has been told something like, there's a good chance that they're going to lose weight on these treatments, so fill them up with all of the carbs and ice cream and sugar and whatever they want in order to keep their weight up, without acknowledging the fact that those are like immunosuppressants that are not a good idea.
It is like, it was shocking to see it, because again, growing up in this world, we weren't really used to that. And there was a couple times where my husband would be like, you should take a walk, because I'd be like, you know, like, why are they finding the wings to craft dinner? Like, I don't get it. Like, I just wanted to help so bad. And yeah, it's true. Like we had people say, you know, one day my daughter ate 17 chocolate bars because that's all she'd eat. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and that's not their fault. That's not their fault. That's our system's fault. And they should, that, like, you know, you just, I don't know. It's so disheartening, but also the fact that we can flip the script on that. And I think that was what the key piece was, because Alara, so she had no sugar, but I mean, the kid didn't really eat sugar prior to that. So that wasn't like a huge leap for her not to have sugar. But that child is so super intuitive. But I'll tell you this, like, she never lost an ounce, not 1 ounce. As a matter of fact, by her third treatment, so she had 4 chemotherapy treatments, which, you know, like her numbers were already normal before her second treatment. Or before her third treatment, they were normal. But the second treatment, they had dropped drastically because she has a marker in her liver. But by her third treatment, she was gaining weight. She was like, she would have her IV with 4 different chemos going into her arm, and she'd be like, walk, Mimi, walk. And we would throw her runners on, and one day we did 1,800 steps with her pole of chemo. Kid was a machine. She's a beast. But we fed her. I mean, she also was eating nori. You know, she was eating seaweed snacks, because there were certain times when we knew that her thyroid was taking the hit. And so it's like, okay, throw some, you know, get some kelp into her. And she would eat them. One day she had like maybe 3 or 4 of them, you know, the snacks. She just couldn't get enough. And then she stopped and she never ate them again. Like, that's that beauty of that intuition in your body, right? You know what your body needs. Love it. It was just fascinating to watch. It was fascinating.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, kind of along that vein of being able to like educate the other people in the house and see that ripple effect. Obviously, you've written this book partly as your own therapy, partly as a love letter to Alara, as you had said, but also, I mean, obviously there's a bigger plan for it. What kind of change are you hoping to see come out of this?
So change is inevitable, right? That's the one thing we can count on is change. Things just don't stay the same, and they never will. And I think we're seeing it faster than ever. My hope is that people can realize that even though change feels scary, that sometimes there's a reason for it that you just don't see right out of the gate. And yet it will go on to benefit and help you and those around you for years to come, So like the way that Mike and I wrote the book, I have it here. So this is my side, right? And then you flip it over and that's Mike's side. Kind of kitschy. It's like,
it's a hook. It's all right.
It's a thing. And that's actually this like little squiggle. That's Alara's signature in there, which is cute. So that's the other thing that we did. I started in 2018. I went down a path of wanting to really incite change. I love change, to be honest. I think that we need it. So I started a company called He Changed It and She Changed It. And I'm building a mobile app. So I've built one mobile app for men's mental health and wellness. And we're releasing a women's one in the spring because the perspectives are so different. And when, in startup technology, like, especially because my background isn't anything in tech, not the lowest hanging fruit to pick with something to do. Like, had I known, I don't know if I would have gone down this path, but I just feel like I have so much that I need to get out when it comes to people looking after their health. And we started with men because it's so under-resourced, men's mental health and wellness. So under-resourced because we've got generations of this imprinting of just suck it up, right? They sort of lift and support, there's lots of arguments to be had around that, I know, but at the end of the day, so when we wrote this book, I was right in the middle of building this. And there's been times where I'm like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And right in the middle of that, I watched this 18, 19-month-old being hooked up to machines, having, this poison course through her body. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, this baby is like literally fighting for her life and doing it in a way. What she taught me was that there is no other moment than right now and right here. She had zero baggage, zero. We came with all the attachments of baggage, right? We came with the what if and oh my goodness and it could and what happens. And she's like, I got nothing. Lose my hair, sure, whatever. It'll grow back, This is and that's what I want to change. I want us to realize, because it is so easy for us to get caught up in the future or we get stuck in the past, and that doesn't serve us, because if that would have happened to Alara, she wouldn't be here. She just stayed in the moment and she was happy in the moment. And there is one part of the book where I talk about, like, I don't know if I have time. Do I have time for one quick story?
This is our show, babe. We can do whatever we want. You have time. Like, as long as we're both having fun here, we can just keep going. People can turn it off when they're done. Like,
it's not a hard thing. Like I can't even tell you how many blessings came from this. But there's this one, and it's the chapter. There's a chapter in the book about this, but I was feeling it. Like, I'm talking feeling it. I took on every ounce of guilt and shame and, like, not so much shame, but guilt. Like, how did I not see this faster? How did I not prevent this? Oh my goodness, what is the matter with me? I'm like the worst practitioner in the world. I should have seen, I took a stick and beat myself every day for it. And like, I to the point where it's like, I should clearly never help another person on the planet. Like, that's how insidious it became and how deep set I got into my misery with it. And to be fair, it was a lot. And I was trying to be kind to myself afterwards, thinking, I was going through a lot, and to see your baby laying there, it's an easy thing. So Laura and I have an incredible bond, right? She looks like me a little bit, and like Jessica.
A little bit?
I know.
Yeah. She looks exactly like pictures of you when you were little. Like, it is frighteningly similar. It's amazing.
Jessica always says that. She says, I think I birthed my mother-in-law. I'm like, and she kind of acts like me. I mean, we've had this crazy cool bond. And so after her surgery, I remember looking down at her and going through these thoughts of like, I failed her, right? And I'm going to try to get through this without crying. So she woke up, like she kind of came around after her surgery. She looked up at me, and I'm sort of hanging off her bed, and she's hooked up, and surgery was 8 hours. And she wanted nothing to do with me. Nothing. Like, I was like, baby, and she would cry if I came near her. And I lost my noodle. Like, I couldn't even. And so anyways, I left, and I was like, okay, like I left the room, and I'm like, it's okay, it'll get better. Yeah, it didn't. And it was almost 2 weeks. And I remember I called my sister, called your mom, and I was like, I don't even know why I'm here. I've got to come home. I'm not doing anybody any good. She wouldn't let me hold her. She wouldn't let me stay with her. Like, it was brutal. And every day it got worse. And so there was many times where I would go and I'd lay in the corner of a hospital. I found little corners all over the place, and I would just cry. And one day I was trying to get some work done, so I was still trying to work through this. And a friend of mine called. And this is a girl I don't even know that well. Like, I've known her for a couple of years. But she's really like, I call her, like, she's like a fairy. She's like a little sprite. She's like this big. She sort of flits about all over the place. And she's just a really cool chick. I really like her. She's a lot of henna and stuff. And she said to me, she's like, hey, how's it going? And I was thinking about you. How's it going? And of course, anytime anybody asks you that, you're like, like, you can't even get it out. Or at least I do. And I said, yeah, this is what's happening. And in the lightest, flittiest, fairiest way, this girl says, well, nobody wants to hug a pile of poo. Like,
wow.
You're a big, stinky pile of poo. And I said, like, I literally, like, I want to do public speaking on this one day, and I'm going to call my keynote, you're a pile of poo, or something along that line. Because I'm like, what? Like, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, she goes, Candy, she goes, you couldn't have seen this. You didn't do this. You didn't cause this. And you're doing everything to help get her through this. It's a part of the process. She goes, but she goes, you are just bathing in that stink all over you. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I sat with that for a second, and I am like, I am poo. I smell poo. I'm not poo. I'm just wearing poo. And it was about 20 minutes that I sat in that room, and I'm like, Candy, wash that off of you. And I did. I even kind of physically just was like, okay, whew, I don't need this. Stay mine. I kid you not. I walked back in, and if I didn't have eyewitnesses, it'd probably be a little tougher, but Nico was there, Jessica was there, Mike was there in the room. I walked back in, she looked at me, arms up, and that was it. Never ever happened again. And if that doesn't show you that we are energetic and that we have the ability to repel or to attract, we have that ability to make it what we need it to be, if that doesn't show you nothing.
That's amazing. And like, kids are so honest with that, right? Like, I've always said, kids and dogs, when you see people and like kids and dogs don't like them, you don't have that person right there, right? Like, they are so energetically receptive, and they know when you're off your game. And I feel very similar with Jorah. I mean, he's such a handful sometimes, partly because, as my mother will say, he's exactly like me. And anytime I complain about him being a little too dramatic or energized, she just laughs in an evil fashion. Um, but it's the same thing when he's being awful and like really, really difficult. I have to kind of stop and go, oh, what am I, where am I at? And it's always when I'm in a basket case kind of place. And it's just, he shows it, right? The way I feel is what shows on him. I might be holding it together on the outside, but that behavior is how I feel in here. And as soon as I get myself put together, his behavior usually will flip and become so much easier, right? And it's always been that way.
Yeah, 1,000%. And so, to be honest, like this, like it's actually a really, if you're going through a lot of stuff, it's not even a hard fix to figure it out. And you should volunteer somewhere where there's kids or at an SPCA, like you said. And then you'll find out real fast what that mirror looks like coming back at you. And you can kind of work through your stuff through there and you can see yourself shift through that. But yeah, they're like, she was like, like, not for a minute, babe, until I was ready. And it wasn't that she didn't love me and she didn't, still care about me. As a matter of fact, she was probably like, girl, get your stuff together. Like, you go figure out you, boo. I'm good here. Like, that was like that kind of a thing that she had. And I was so, like, it still gives me goosebumps to this day because, so when you say, like, such a long story, but so to go back to like what kind of change you want to inspire, that's the change, like it's just, when you're going through something like that, it's just be kind to yourself and look at yourself and really like be honest and be like, okay, like am I staying in this moment? Am I, and what am I reflecting right now that I can't, look at or whatever? Do I need to shake the poo off? There's a few things like that. And there's simple techniques or simple things that you can do to help to really change what you're going through at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll put links in the doobly doo so people can figure out where to buy the book. But anything you want to bring out about that? Like, where can people find this, and how can they find you?
I'm all over the place. It's funny. You had said, send me a bio. And it was such a long bio. And then I realized that a bio is actually just indicative of how old you are. Because I'm like, I'm 106 clearly. Like, my bio used to be like 3 sentences. I'm like, I'm just old. That doesn't mean much. But yeah, so we've got a website for the books called She Changed Me, is our website. And then I also have my own website for Candace Chisholm, and that just has a few of all the sort of things I'm working on right now if anybody wants to take a boo in there. But the book is available on amazon.com, amazon.ca. If it's also at Indigo in Canada. Yeah, we are going to actually be in Indigo stores, which is really cool. So that's, Barnes and Noble if you're in the States. That's where you'll be able to find it. And then if they're interested in anything like, what we're working on with the men's, we're really working with the men's mental health and wellness on tools so the premise behind that is balance before burnout. Just these fast acting tools that we've all learned through things like the modalities that we learn, like Touch for Health. There's some EFT and things like that we talk about in that app, where you can do some of your self-work to get you in between the moments when you're seeing somebody. Not everybody can afford to go to a practitioner every week, although we'd all love to. So if you're going once a month, then there's still these other days where you can, track your moods, track your activity, track like what's kind of happening. So that's all going into the app, as well as we just launched yesterday, of course, with the Canadian Mental Health Association for Men. It's a communications course. It's beautiful. Just a click through course that they can do anonymously and on their own, just to help start to build some healthy practices for themselves. They've sort of been waylaid. So that's at hechangedme.com. And then the app is in the app store. So I think that's mostly the links to me, or you can call me. Like, I'm pretty open.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it.
I am too. I am so grateful. I love just watching you and watching what you're doing, watching what you're, the awareness that you're bringing to everything, to touch for health, to kinesiology, applied kinesiology, up to just everything. I think you've done an incredible, I'm not saying this because you're my niece. I'm saying this because you're incredible. And I brag about you all the time. Because it's just very, now more than ever, people need direction and see it, and they need somebody to be like, hey, it's okay, we've got this, and I'm going to show you why. And one of the things that I've always loved about how you work is the teaching that you do with it, right? Like, it's easy to practice on somebody, or to have somebody come into your practice and work on them and things like that. But I think a lot of this too also came from grandma, and we all sort of have that similar style where we're like, hey, look, here's the background of it, and this is why I'm going to tell you why. Because the more you know, the better you are. And I think that you have done a fantastic job and are continuing to do a fantastic job with that. And I'm also grateful your kids are continuing the legacy, because we be old and we need somebody to keep going. So,
our bios are just getting longer and longer. We need people with short bios.
Right? Like, just stop at like 1953. Like, anything after 1953, don't put it down.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to turn this off. So thank you.
Thank you.